Who was the creepiest person you've ever seen or met? Used to be close friends with a guy who molested my other close friend. He also tried to start a cult by bringing us to Jesus through him. I was at the public library about 4 years ago doing schoolwork and a man came up and sat down at my table, staring at me. After easily 10 minutes, he asked me why I was wearing gold headphones, cheap but fun gold colored headphones, and then informed me that the royals back in medieval times used to make the peasants dig for gold because they were actually supernatural entities who ate it. By this point I'm shooting help me eyes at the librarians, who all ignore me. He talks for a bit longer and then pulls out a mask like something you would wear on Halloween and puts it on. Sits there, staring at me. Library security officer finally kicks him out because he refused to take the mask off. I leave the library easily 2 hours later and he's outside, waiting. He follows me about a block before I pull out my phone and threaten to call the police on him. He calls me a bitch and walks away. Okay, I have 2 stories, both involve me working. 1. I was at work and the really shifty person came in. He looked like if someone dipped a weasel in some fry grease then dried him with a towel. At this time I was taking orders from customers up front. At the time of taking his order he seemed really normal, so I silently scolded myself for judging people. As I was handing him order he leaned in really close and said, "I would love to see you naked and tied up." I went home early that day too. I was working drive-through, collecting payment from the customers while simultaneously taking orders. After I had finished giving this guy his change and was driving away, he said that he liked the way my voice sounded over the intercom and it gave him a boner. A senior, when I was a freshman, had a huge crush on me. I didn't mind it at first cause he was pretty chill and just a casual dude I could talk to. Plus I didn't think of him as a threat since my brother was a senior at our high school and the kid was around my height, 5'1". All of a sudden he started getting really clingy and attached and texted me non-stop, even when I didn't answer. It got to the point he was leaving love notes and gifts in my locker and at my address, which I had mistakenly given to him back when we were friends planning to hang out at some point. I'd wake up to these signs of affection at my doorstep and at my locker. His first class was next to mine, so he'd always try to block me in the hall and talk to me. It got to the point where he had memorized my schedule and I had to take a different way to my classes each day and pray he didn't guess which route I was gonna take. My family took notice on it and my brother got the kid ostracized from everyone. Not that he wasn't already an outcast of sorts, but was seen as more of a harmless character. My older brother also threatened the kid and said if he ever tried to get close to me again he wouldn't hesitate to stab the kid. This is all especially troubling cause I was 14 at the time and the creepy guy was already 19. Few years ago, I was in a new city for some official work. The first night, I was just walking on the road, roaming around after the city slept. So I was walking up in this empty road and I saw a girl walking towards a bus stand in opposite direction. Just enough to see whether the person is girl or boy. Following her. She stopped at the bus stop. These guys just looking at her and following her. As I came close by, she was looking at me once and at them. Everything normal and the guys standing just a few meters away. I saw her and she looked at me with these big tears eyes. I stood there scared poopless at what those guys may do, but I made it a point to stay there with her. They made some calls. Just then a city bus came and she boarded it. The guys also start walking towards the bus, so I start walking straight towards them. Fast and with angry face. They stopped there while the bus left. The girl just mouthed thank you from the bus window. I started walking away again towards my hotel. Guys followed me for one street but then left, I suppose. Some random guy who approached me one morning and asked me out. He gave me major creepy vibes. I'd seen him hanging around outside my building for a while and this was the first time he'd spoken to me. Not long after, I woke up to an intruder in my bedroom. I can't be certain it was the same man, because it was too dark to see the intruder's face clearly enough. But there was enough similarity that it was definitely possible that it was the same guy. And the guy who'd been hanging around disappeared after the break-in. Never saw him again. Prior to that I'd seen him often enough that I thought he'd moved into one of the buildings along that stretch of the road. The fact that he then disappeared was suspicious. I transported a cannibal once when I was an extradition officer. He said he wanted to eat me, so I bought him a pepperoni pizza and told him he could pretend it's me. There is this dude from my town. He talked to me and we became really close. He asked me to be his girlfriend and I didn't accept it, but I didn't rejected him either. I told him I was going to think about it and it was difficult for me BC of my anxiety and my time management. He stopped talking to me. Even blocked me of social media. One night I felt I was getting chased on the street, so I walked faster to a crowded place and looked behind me and he was there trying to hide through the people. He's been talking to me and sending me messages since then, even telling me things like, I saw you yesterday with your father at X place, you look so beautiful with that clothes you had yesterday, I love when you use red lipstick and it creeps me out. Sorry for format. On mobile. When I was 16 chilling in my car during my break at work, a man tapped on my passenger window. I was immediately put off. Like, bruv, WTF you doing? But I, kinda stupidly, rolled my window down a crack and asked what's up. He noticed my work uniform and asked me if we had any deals going on. I explained that we did. That's done. Now he'll leave. Nope. I explained I'm on break. He then tells me he's going to the gas station across the street for smokes and asks if I want some. I say no. He leaves. I'm creeped out but kind brush it off. Break's over. I'm starting to head back when I hear him shouting at me across the park lot. Hey. Where you going? He asks. I tell him I gotta go back to work. BC I'm about to open the door and my uniform on. I think it's really freaking weird now, but then he says, oh man. That blows. What time do you get off? Bitch, what? I look my age. If not a year or two younger, and I'm 5'0". I panicked and said, oh. I don't know. I get off at different times if we're busy. And book it TF and sighed. No way in hell was I going to tell him that I get off at 11 at night and he knows where I parked. I have so many stories about weird fricks back then. TD, DR, creepy grown ass man asks me, 16F, what time I get off work after coming up to my car while I'm on break. I was out early doing my morning walk and I saw this guy appear out of the bushes. At first I just thought that he may be a gardener or something and I was just seeing it from a weird angle. I kept walking, but took out one headphone so I could hear. I made a turn down my street and casually glanced over my shoulder to see where he was, which was crossing the street over to my side. He started picking up the pace and I thought about running, but for some reason I turned all the way around so I was facing him and firmly yelled, "Can I help you?" Exclamation point. We both stood there staring at each other. I basically told myself subconsciously not to back down, so I took a step towards him. He turned around and walked back across the street. I don't know what came over me. I was just like, frick you. I'm not scared, even though I was. And it worked. I met Tom Cruise at a fancy restaurant in Los Angeles. I was working on their pose and he came in the back and wanted to meet the staff. He did this weird assembly line thing where he gave 9 seconds worth of name repetition and eye contact to everybody. It was like meeting an animatronic puppet being operated by an alien that just arrived on Earth. What do you do here? That's important. I'm happy to have met you. He seemed to already know who I was, even though there's no way for him to have known I was going to be there. He did this song and dance with everybody in the back of house. The weird part was that he seemed to know everybody. He does this thing where he makes a joke, then stands next to you and laughs as if somebody else told it to the both of you. I hope somebody else here has met him, because this can't be an isolated incident. Edit. I want to reiterate that it was totally weird, not at all like it was meeting Ben Stiller, who was perfectly pleasant and clearly human. Guy I was in the military with. Killed his girlfriend and 2 children by drowning them. Old baseball coach had a very pedo vibe to him. The way he interacted with the players. My dad kept saying he does stuff to kids. Turned out he would sext and molest certain players. It started to come out after several players killed themselves. One of my old co-workers. For some reason she became infatuated with me. Which would be fine if she wasn't super freaking creepy about it. She would run up to me and try to hug me every single day. Despite me telling her not to. She took every possible chance to accidentally brush up against me. And she would even leave love letters for me around the lab. Most of these letters contained some form of "you are my sunshine" or "I would die without you." And she never showered. She was pretty overweight. So her B.O. tended to gather up under her boobs. Which she loved to accidentally shove in my face or put on my shoulder whenever I was sitting down. I reported her many times. But her mom was the head of HR, so those complaints tended to get lost. Eventually she transferred out after I became a supervisor and told her she needed to act more appropriately in the workplace. And I got written up by HR for being too aggressive. Obviously. Guy at my high school acted like a total creep. Tried putting his hands on girls. Claimed to have a snake tattooed on his PP. Lo and behold. Less than a year after he graduates. He's arrested for exposing himself to a freaking toddler at the library. I met this guy. And we hit it off. We went for coffee. Seemed normal, so next date I agreed to meet him at his place and watch a movie. As long as he agreed to give me a ride home. Since buses would not be running after the movie. No problem, he says. Well, I showed up and he is already half drunk. There goes my ride home. We start the movie and he is trying to get me to drink. Which I decline. He then goes into his bedroom and comes back with his half-hard PP out and starts telling me to say hi to Mr. PP. And that Mr. PP wants a kiss. I left and got my own taxi home. Guy I played hockey with. Turned out to be a pedophile. Can't say I knew it beforehand. But he was definitely creepy and gave off a bad vibe. There was a girl I met in college, and when she introduced herself to my friends and I got the shiver down my spine feeling. Just thinking something's off. Fast forward few months. I'm eating dinner with one of my friends and she joins us. She starts to share her Harry Potter fanfiction with us. And tells us that she made herself 13 in a relationship with Snape. That really unsettled me. One of my friends caught her going through other people's laundry and sniffing it. I think she ended up getting suspended or expelled because she was killing rats and storing them in her backpack and textbooks and was pulling them out in lecture and playing with them. Sometimes it's important to trust your initial instinct, and I'm so happy I listened to my instincts. There was a guy in the training program that I went through for the military that kept a journal where he wrote about how he manipulates everyone in the class to do his will. He fell asleep constantly and eventually got kicked out for pooped grades. A few months later, a woman comes to interview me because he listed me as a character witness for a clearance he'd applied for. I was honest with her that he creeped the poop out of me. Never heard about him again, but I'm worried that I'm on his lipstick list. Moved a carousel horse to the attic of Robert Badilla in Casey with a buddy of mine. We had just graduated high school. So we're around 18. He was big into antiques and such and routinely traded, bought, and sold with my friend's mother, who was exclusively into carousel animals from early periods. This guy that used to work night shift at a gas station near my house. He had this creepy serial killer vibe. He would stare with these wide eyes and toothy smile when people walked in and would make it a point to ask about people's families. He drove an old Nissan hatchback type car that had a broken back window, no rear bumper, and had trash bags for seat covers. I looked into it one night and there was a shovel in the back. I stopped going in there when he was there. He looked kinda like David Koresh but a lot creepier. I asked about him after not seeing him for a few months, and the cashier asked me to please not mention him again. Wasn't there to see it but heard it from a coworker. 20-odd-year-old girl at work was minding her own business when a 50-plus guy comes in to pay. He asks her what color her hair is. She says ginger. Because well, it's ginger. Apparently her blonde highlights actually make her a strawberry blonde. And he thought it was best to let her know. She ignores him and he leaves. Then he rings the workplace 2 hours later. He asks for my strawberry blonde. A different co-worker answered and told them they were busy and hung up. Then again 2 hours later he calls and she picks up the phone. He starts quizzing her for personal details. Her phone number, name, age, star sign, shift times, etc. She answers a couple just because she was stunned at how weird the situation is. Then hangs up. I've met creepy myself. But that sort of interaction in the workplace makes my skin crawl. I've had guys hit on me and talk about how they saw me at work, and it's honestly the worst idea anyone could have to pick up someone.
Hi there. Look, if you enjoyed the video, well, why not go ahead and hit that like and subscribe to Reddit Stories. In fact, if you want to see even more responses to this thread, well then, take a look. There's the link in the description below. And remember, show some love to those authors while you're there. And I look forward to seeing you next time.